Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the more fascinating, exciting games that we're going to see all of 2024. Texas heading on the road to the Big House Week 2 against Michigan. Now, we've already done our game prediction and preview for this football game. That being said, I want to take a deeper dive specifically, kind of from the standpoint of this Texas program, and talk about some things that, I think Texas can do to give Michigan some problems in this football game Saturday afternoon. Now, a lot of you guys know I'm a Michigan fan, so I know this Michigan program, quite well. And from what we saw with Michigan Fresno State week 1, there are definitely some things that I think Texas can do on both sides of the football to attack this Michigan program. Those are the things I want to get into. Now, before we do, and as always, most importantly, let it fly in the comment section. We're going to do the same exact thing for this Michigan program as well, kind of take a deep dive into Michigan's standpoint, talk about what they can do to win this football game. Whether you agree with the takes, whether you disagree, I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with this Texas offense. There's no way around it. This is one of the best defenses that we'll see in the country in terms of this Michigan defense. What can Texas do to get it going against this Michigan defense? And I think it starts with, at least in my opinion, one of the more fascinating play calling battles that we're going to see all year, where you look at Wink Martindale. He wants to bring pressure. He wants to be aggressive. He wants to create turnovers and negative plays. And then you look on the other side, Coach Sark is a mastermind at creating explosive plays, getting his guys in space, pushing the ball vertically down the field, kind of dialing up some of those shot plays. That can change this game, right? Wink Martindale wants to be aggressive. How can Coach Sark potentially use that to his advantage in this football game? I think it starts with misdirection. And Coach Sark loves this stuff. You look at Texas and how they structure their offense. It's a lot of pre-snap motion. It's a lot of misdirection concepts. And that could be quite useful against this Michigan defense that flies around to the football. And you're trying to dial up explosive plays. I think we saw against Fresno State with Michigan's defense week 1. And Michigan's going to be aggressive. They're going to leave their cornerbacks at times on islands. Can Texas scheme it up and kind of hit some of those game-changing plays? I think we all know it's hard to just march the football down this Michigan program's defense. They're just really, really dang good. And so what did we see Will Johnson, Michigan's best cornerback, probably best player on this football team, get beat on once in that Fresno State game? Little slug and go. And you look at Michigan, they want to jump routes. They want to fly to the football, heavy play action, slug and goes, certain things that you can get Michigan potentially with their eyes in the backfield being really aggressive and then using that to create some separation down the field and potentially hit some explosive plays. That's what I think is going to really determine this game. How many explosive plays can this Texas offense manufacture with Coach Sark calling the offense is something that you got to look for. I think the number 2 thing that you're looking for, and kind of flipping over to the defensive side of the football, is Texas's interior defensive line, and can they be game wreckers on the inside? You look at this Michigan offense, I am very confident that this Michigan offensive line is a talented group, but it's a group that hasn't played a ton of football together. And you saw Michigan struggle with some communication stuff on the inside of the offensive line, particularly picking up stunts and picking up pressures. For Michigan, the last 2 years, they had a guy named Olu. They had a guy named Drake Nugent, 2 of the most experienced, solid centers that you see in all of college football. Michigan has a brand new starting center in 2024 who made his first start against Fresno State. You got 2 guards on the sides of him. That one you got in the transfer portal, who's experienced, but again, his first start with this Michigan offensive line. Then the other one's Giovanni Elhadi, who, again, solid interior offensive line, but hasn't played a ton of football in a starter capacity. And so what you saw Michigan struggle with a little bit was dealing with some of those stunts, dealing with some of those A and B gap pressures where the offensive line has to communicate a little bit. For Texas, again, you don't have T'Vondre Sweat, you don't have Byron Murphy, but you still have some dudes, right? Alfred Collins, I think one of the better interior defensive linemen you've seen in the country. Thought Vernon Broughton was phenomenal against Colorado State. You went to the transfer portal and added some other names. This is an experienced group that has played a lot of college football. If you're trying to attack this Michigan offensive line, what I would be looking for is kind of running some stunts and trying to win on the inside. I think Michigan has some pretty good tackle play. They get the football out awfully quickly. If you want to impact what we think is going to be Davis Warren as the quarterback one, you want to try to manufacture some pressure on the inside of the offensive line. I think number three, you got to take away Colston Loveland in the middle of the field. I think the most concerning thing you saw as a Michigan fan week one against Fresno State was one, the lack of ability to push the ball vertically down the field. You look at Davis Warren's spray chart, he only took 2 shots, 20 plus yards down the field. His average depth of target was less than 8 yards. Michigan didn't show against Fresno State that they could effectively vertically work their passing game. What they did have a lot of success with was Colston Loveland over the middle of the field. One, Davis Warren, over half of his completions in that football game went to Colston Loveland. More importantly, well over half of his pass attempts were working the middle of the field to Colston Loveland as well. And so if you're Texas, you're looking at this Michigan passing attack and saying, one, last year with JJ McCarthy, they didn't ask JJ McCarthy to push the ball down the field all that often, but when they did, JJ McCarthy had the ability to make those plays. If you're Texas on the defensive side of the football, I think your first point of business is, hey, we're going to put our safeties into the box. We're going to try to take away the run game and take away the short intermediate passing concepts and make Davis Warren beat us vertically down the field, because we haven't seen him do it yet. And as a Michigan fan, I'm not necessarily not necessarily saying that Davis Warren can't push the ball vertically down the field and punish opposing defenses, but we haven't really saw it. And there's a lot of the wide receivers aren't necessarily kind of built to work vertically down the field. So I think if you're Texas, you're trying to take away the run game. You're trying to take away Colston Loveland and show and make Davis Warren prove in his second career start that he can work the boundary and that he can work vertically down the field. I think that's probably what Texas' game plan is heading into this. And I think that's the biggest concern for a lot of Michigan fans is what you got from Fresno State was the concern was it's a little bit of a one-dimensional offense right now. There's not a ton of ways. When you had J.J. McCarthy at quarterback last year, there were a lot of different ways Michigan's offense could attack opposing defenses. Yes, they wanted to run the football, but there were some other options when teams tried to take away the run that Michigan could go to. I don't know if you saw that from Davis Warren and this brand new Michigan offense week one against Fresno State. If you're Texas, you're trying to make Davis Warren and this new offense kind of show that there are multiple ways that they can attack an opposing defense. Number four, and probably the most important key to the game here, you can't let Michigan play on their own terms. You look at Michigan, why they won a national championship in 2023, it was largely because a lot of teams just didn't get Michigan, as we get an ad popped up on our depth chart here. A lot of teams didn't really make Michigan play a kind of when they were uncomfortable, right? And what makes Michigan uncomfortable as a football program, playing from behind, having to push the ball down the field, having to get into shootout type performances, right? You go back to the college football playoffs. I think one of the things Washington wanted to do, we get another advertisement here. One of the things that Washington wanted to make Michigan do, but they couldn't, was kind of get that football game into a shootout. Can Texas do that? Can Texas maybe prevent Michigan from just running the football, controlling the time possession, playing Michigan's brand? That's probably the biggest question mark. So I think even if you're risking giving up some explosive plays to this Michigan offense, one, they haven't really shown you with the new quarterback and new offense that they can do that. But more importantly, is it that big of a deal? Like, what would you want this game to look like? If you're Texas, you probably want it to look a little bit more like a track meet, like a shootout, like a quarterback battle, Quinn Ewers versus Davis Warren, because I think a lot of Michigan fans would look at that and say, if this gets into a quarterback battle, hey, who are you taking, Davis Warren or Quinn Ewers? I think even a lot of Michigan fans would probably say Quinn Ewers. And so that's probably the biggest key. It always is the biggest key in terms of beating Michigan. I think the biggest concern for a lot of Michigan fans is that you might be a little too one-dimensional on offense. And I think Texas is going to want to show or make Davis Warren show that they can be two-dimensional. Those are my keys to the game. Again, I think what's going to be fascinating, Coach Sark going up against Wink Martindale. It's going to be a really fun game. We're going to recap it after it happens Saturday afternoon. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.